Many thanks for many thanks for staying with us. Yes, it's still the conversation, and today we're looking at I forgot Pelewura. Pelewura, a Lagos heroine. Yes. Do you know something? There's something about the Alimat. I have one. They like business and they do well. You know, they're very industrious. Because she was named after her great-great-grandmother, who was also a very industrious woman in Ijebu-Ode. But today, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Alimat Pelewura. We're taking a journey into Lagos history, one that brings to life the story of courage, resistance, and the enduring power of women in shaping society. Our focus is on Alimotu Pelewura, a formidable market leader who stood at the forefront of resistance against colonial policies, and how her legacy echoes in modern times through figures like Abibatu Mogaji, the late Iyalode General of Nigeria. And joining us, or seated here with us this morning, is a renowned historian and scholar, Habib Sani, Professor of History and Developmental Studies at the Lagos State University. Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. So let's begin with the foundation this morning. Who exactly was Alimat Pelewura, and why does her name still resonate in Lagos? There's a popular market in Lagos that is named after
Lagos
her.
Island.
Yes,
It's
take us
just
through.
been demolished to be made into a modern
Modern market.
Well, Alimatu Pelewura was a woman born into, of moderate family. The father was Habibu Pelewura, who was
Your
a trader.
namesake?
Yes, Habibu Pelewura.
Your namesake.
And the mother was a fishmonger. And around 1900, she was born in 1871, around the Okepopo area in Lagos. And the father, like I said, was a trader. The mother, at that time, most Lagosians were into fishing. Yes. The parents, the father will go and fish, the mothers will be the one selling the fish. So she took after her mother's business, and she also became a fishmonger. And by around 1900, she had become one of the very popular business fishmongers in Lagos generally, to the extent that she was appointed the Alaga of Araromi market women. Araromi is around the race course, very close to Onikon in Lagos. So she was the leader of the market women there, and from there she grew to become a nationalist, especially when Herbert Macaulay, the journalist, the surveyor, and the public as a letter writer for indigenous Lagosians became a nationalist. So from around 1922, NNDP, that's the Nigerian National Democratic Party, was founded, and Alimatu Pelewura was one of those enlisted into that political party as one of the backup from the women's wing. And she was able to raise about 10,000 women for NNDP at a later period. So she was a woman from a humble background who rose to become a nationalist through her business of fishmongering. And a lot of people got to know more about her because of her role in confronting colonial government policies that were considered inimical, to the development of the colonized people of Lagos at that time.
Yeah, that's exactly my next question now, because reading through her story yesterday night, and what I saw was that she was a woman who had a strong personality, and of course a voice of resistance for women when it had to do with taxation for women. I'd like you to also break that down for us.
Okay, thank you very much. The issue of taxation came up around 1940 when the income tax ordinance was introduced by the colonial government, and women of Lagos who were into business and who have been able to make an annual income of about £50 were expected to pay £5 or so for what they have been able to make. And Alimotu Pelewura, supported by the Oba of Lagos, then Oba Falolu, considered this very, very outrageous. How can you ask women to start paying tax? And she sought the support of the Oba, who pejoratively announced that it was it was untraditional. I think that's the best word to put it. Untraditional to ask women to pay tax. So Alimotu Pelewura led women of Lagos in protest against that, and the colonial government had no choice but to reverse the arrangement, and now asked that whatever had to be made to be able to pay such money should be £100. She led the women.
Should be £100. That means any woman making
£100 annually and above
okay,
should now be able to pay the tax, not £50
okay.
at that time.
Okay, now that you've talked about her strides, to fight for women and raising the bar from £50 to £100 and above, it shows that market and economic and political structure, had a significance, yes, and we're interconnected in Lagos. I'd like you to tell us about, that interconnection and how it grew Lagos as a state.
The Lagos of that period was a Lagos where a lot of things was happening. So many things were happening at the same time. It was the era when Oba Eshugbayi, the Eleko, was suspended, especially from around 1925. Of course, he had been suspended earlier, around 1919. And there was the need for the indigenous element to rally around their king. Abat Macaulay led a group of educated elite and, of course, the traditional elite to rally around against Eshugbayi, to the extent that he used his newspaper to promote the interest of the traditional institution. Okay. Of course, there were so many other enemies that Lagos was divided into two mutually opposing forces. Some, the supporters of the traditional institution known as Gbepo. Why the enemies or supporters of the colonial government, yes, quote unquote, were known as Gbebo. And for a very long time, Lagos politics was divided along these two mutually opposing forces. And everybody had to queue either in support of the Gbepo or the Gbebo. But the majority of Lagosians, who has at that time felt that what was happening to their traditional number one traditional citizen, the Oba, was something they did not expect, especially around 1912 when Herbert Macaulay was jailed. For politics had always been an important thing, that if you are an enemy of government, you must suffer. But if you are a supporter of government, the government will patronize you. So Abat Macaulay couldn't get government patronage because he was very harsh. Of course, he was still considered a mild nationalist by some of those who felt that he should have done more. But because he was always against policies that were due inimical to the interest of Lagosians, colonial government had to find a way of dealing with him. So that was what happened, and he saw the support of the market women and some Muslims, traditional elite, who felt so strongly that what was being done to their number one citizen, the Oba of Lagos, in person of Eshugbayi Eleko, was not what they expected. And so they became a backup, feeling that let us jettison whatever government want to do, and let us concentrate on our own traditional institution and give it a backup. And so in that situation, we had the market women, the traders, the politicians, and even the religious elements in Lagos society coming together to form a group mainly to support the traditional institution in Lagos.
Okay, when you look at her story and her life and her leadership style, and of course the role of women, looking at it at Lagos of then and now, and looking at politics in general and the role of women, what does that teach us?
What is?
I said, when you look at the life of Pelewura,
Yes.
hope I got that right now, and then
Yes,
her
right.
leadership style and how she was able to, you know, become a voice with a strong personality, and the power of women coming together, looking at how life was then and then looking at the politics of today, what does it teach us?
Okay, one of the lessons we can get from Pelewura's role as a nationalist and a leading woman of our own era is that there was a focus by the women, you know, to come to rally around her. And she, of course, an unlettered person, was able to mobilize a lot of these people. Unlike the situation we find ourselves today, when there are so many educated people, and I don't know if I can use that word, when this idea of women liberation had become an issue, many women want to be on their own, and they don't want to, aside from giving respect to those who are due to, just want to act on their own as individuals. So in the era of Pelewura, she was the alaga of all the market women, and they all rallied around her. Her words became permanent thing that should be obeyed, sort of, and she was able to mobilize a lot of these people to support the opposing group against colonial maladministration of the period.
Okay, you said it earlier that Alimat Pelewura was not a lettered woman, and at that time women were sort of, you know, marginalized, and they couldn't even, you know, hold political participation, formal political participation. So how did she go about mobilizing these women, you know, in the market?
The most important thing is the role of Herbert Macaulay. Macaulay needed the support of the women, and having been elected as the alaga of all Lagos Market Women Association, she was able to move around and convince all of these people to do the bidding of course, some of these people saw what was happening in Lagos. One of those things that had actually happened before she came to limelight was the introduction of water rates in Lagos around 1908. The construction of the Jew Water Works was going to take place, and some Lagosians felt that being asked to defray the costs of constructing that water works shouldn't have been their business. And more so that the water was not actually meant for them. The water was to go to Ikoyi and Victoria Island, where the Europeans lived. Why would you ask us to now pay for water? And so Lagosians challenged that around 1908. It became an issue, and it had to be suspended eventually, temporarily. Then before colonial government, you know, found a way of eventually introducing it. And by 1916, the first pipe-borne water in Nigeria got into Lagos, but majority of this water went to Ikoyi. Then we had public taps in different parts of Lagos where people would have to go and queue to fetch pipe-borne water. So from that period, the Lagosians felt that what the colonial government was asking them to do was something that would be more beneficial to the colonialists than the indigenous element. And so there was the need to find a rallying point, which was what brought about the likes of Herbert Macaulay and some other traditional element coming together to, to oppose some of those things that the colonial government was introducing. In fact, it was a period when Lagos was rapidly urbanizing, but some of those things, people felt that they were not needed by them.
Okay. I noticed that this woman did so much, for women, and of course Lagos at that time. Most times I noticed that, her name is not as prominent as, other women nationalists in Nigeria. Because when they're talking about the likes of Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, Amina Ozaria, they don't mention her name that much. Why is it like that?
Well, I don't know, but there are several essays already written in her name. Perhaps for those of us who are not so in the academics, we may not know. One of the earliest was written by one Nina Mba, Women in Lagos Politics. And
why is it always so narrowed down to Lagos alone?
Because Lagos is the center. Lagos is the center of everything.
Why just Lagos? Why don't they just say, oh, she's the first to do this, she did that, why?
Because it happened in Lagos anyway. And like I said, political activities actually commenced in Lagos before it dovetailed into other parts of modern Nigeria. Lagos had been the center. It was not an accident that Lagos was the first place people will talk about, because from around 1861, when the Decision Treaty was signed, Lagos became the capital of the British government before it moved into other parts of modern Nigeria, into the oil rivers, into the Royal Niger Company, where we are in the north, and several other parts. Lagos was the first place of British colonial administration, and for a very long time remained the capital of that government, to the extent that Lagosians of 1861 and above and beyond, from 1861 down to early 1900, were considered British citizens. Yes, and they had British passports. Oh. Yes. So everything about politics in Nigeria actually commenced in Lagos. And that was why there was, in fact, the first political party that was founded was in 1908, the People's Union, founded by Dr. J.K. Randu and another doctor, Orishadipe Obasa, two prominent returnees who felt that, well, when we talk of having pipe-borne water, it was necessary, but there was the issue of lack of representation, especially by the educated elite of the time. They felt that we needed water, but they had to be represented in government. So the opposition to the introduction of water rates was that no taxation without representation. That was the first thing that, and I said something earlier, politics, whether from the colonial era or up till now, we should be able to link it up. If you are enemy of government, you will suffer. In fact, sedition threats were issued against Dr. J.K. Randu and Orishadipe Obasa by the colonial government for forming that People's Union. And henceforth, they remain government apologists. So that was the situation.
So talking about linking the past and the present now, earlier on when I was doing my intro, I mentioned Abibatu Mogaji, who took over from
Alimatu
Pelewura. How did she come into the picture, really?
Abibatu Mogaji, she was Alimatu Pelewura's not PA per se. What do you call it? Apprentice.
Oh.
She was an apprentice at a point, yes. And she learned the rope of market leadership through her. And in fact, by the death of Alimatu Pelewura, the other political parties in Nigeria of the nationalist era, such as the NCNC, were looking up to Mrs. Fumilayo Constantine Martins also. Constantine Martins. And of course, the other woman, they were looking at educated women.
Okay.
But for Abibatu Mogaji, she became a member of the action group. Yes, so she was the market leader, the political leader of women in the action group, and taking after Alimatu Pelewura.
Okay, I'm still going to refer back to her as a strong personality. If she were to be alive today, looking at the issues surrounding us in Nigeria, which of these issues do you think she'll be more vocal about?
She would have been involved in virtually everything. She believed that there shouldn't be any oppression. Aside from opposition to the income tax ordinance, she was also opposed to the introduction of what was known as price control mechanism introduced by the colonial government during the Second World War. At that time, the colonial government wanted a situation where food rationing had to be put in place, and they created a kind of a pooling price commission. One man, A.J. Pulin, was appointed to ensure that all agricultural produce were bought by the colonial government, rationed to people in Lagos, while some were taken to the war front during the Second World War. In the process, it was believed that enough food could not get to the market, and they were also asked to sell at a controlled price. Perhaps you may not know that that became the origin of what we call black market today, because the woman decided that market women should not display their goods during the day, but only at night, and they should sell only to customers that were known to them. So all markets in Lagos were, had no food to sell, and colonial government was forced to call her. They threatened her. They wanted to bribe her. When they discovered that she was not going to budge, they had to stop the pooling price control. And in fact, she led a protest even against that. And I remember my mother telling me the song that was sung by the women of that period. I don't know if I will be permitted to sing that song.
Why not?
Okay.
Go ahead.
During that protest, which was around 1943, that she led, it was said that Laduro reti na go se fo oyinbo tan, oyinbo tí ó bá oyinbo tí ó bá wọ̀ fún afe kó sílẹ̀ o, oyinbo máa ń tata o ata, oyinbo máa ń tepo epo, láyé ń bí láláì mọ̀nà ọ̀dọ̀gọ̀, láyé ń bí Fálolúwà nígà, ìran òyìnbó kì í tẹ̀gúsí. Yes, and upon all that favor, upon all the favors that the Yoruba man and Agona have done for the Europeans, at least by allowing them to come into our territory. And now they appear to be they don't want to appreciate. They are so unappreciative of what has been done. And now the Oyinbo man is selling pepper, selling oil, without knowing Idogo. Idogo is the train station where most food from the, what do you call the place now? In Ogun State, Ayetoro axis, all the food from that area, they take it to Idogo station before being transported to Lagos. Without knowing the road to Idogo, a rail station, the European now, and also forgetting that Falolu still remains the Oba in the palace. The Europeans should know that they don't have business selling pepper or egusi. That is melon. So that was the popular song that she led the women of that time to sing. And they took a letter signed by 1,000 women to the secretary of the colony at that time, I think it's Bernard Bodilon, to show that there was a displeasure against the introduction of a price control mechanism that the colonial government introduced. So this also forced the hands of the colonial government to rethink And that shows that if she had been alive today, she would have opposed everything that she felt would be against the interest of the commoners, especially the women at that time, at the time.
But we still have the Yaloja institution in Lagos, or should I say Nigeria today, and and does it still have such? Abimbola, help me with this English. The Yaloja institution, which has a very strong political and economic structure here in Lagos. Do we still have, such?
They still command authority.
Yes, as far back as the likes of Alimat, Pelewura, Abibatu Mogaji, do we still have?
I want to believe it's even stronger now, but it depends on the political party in power. You may not during the era of Alaja Abibatu Mogaji. She protested severally.
I remember that woman.
And I can remember the case.
And the military.
Yes. She was everywhere.
She was everywhere.
When Abiola was killed, she confronted, I think it was Ishaya Abamayi that was sent. She led women to confront the military administration of the time. That she was not happy that they have wasted Abiola just like that. She said, she couldn't, she was also unlettered. She led women to confront the colonial government. And of course, on several occasions, they were always seeking or currying her favors. But today, we still have Market Women Association, still very vibrant at their respective markets. And there is a general, a Yaloja general, who is also very, very vibrant. But they are not doing what the likes of Abibatu Mogaji and Alimatu Pelewura were doing. They have become more or less comatose in terms of agitation against the economic interest.
Agitations.
In fact, I have not seen any serious agitation in recent times coming from the market women.
Or maybe there is no need for it.
No, there are several things that are happening that we would have seen women too, leading, but it's not happening.
Interesting conversation we've had today talking about the life and times of Alimotu Pelewura, Lagos Heroine. And thank you so much, Professor Habib Sani, for taking us down history. It's like a history class, Yesterday we had a master class. Today is history class.
It's a history class.
Thank you so much for your time on the conversation.
Thank you very much.
The program continues shortly. Stay with us.